Venketram. Uh, Talking about Chennai, always something close to my heart because I was someone who was born, brought up here. Bringing up life was uh, in Georgetown, which is old Madras. It is the old part of the city and a very historic part of the city, and that's where Madras grew initially. The fact is, what I like about Chennai is it's very diverse. It's historic to a certain extent, of course, and it's got its own style. In the sense, Madras those days, when I was growing up, I used to love running when I was in school. So I used to run all the way from Georgetown down the subway where Reserve Bank of India is, and I used to run up to the beach where Anna Samadhi till there, in the University of Madras. And as I run through that thing, it's so historic because you first come across the harbour on the left, and then you have the Fort St. George on the right, which has got the museums, and then you have the St. Mary's Church, which is inside the fort. Then you come across the War Memorial, and then you run across the marina, the bridge, and then come to the beach, where you have these awesome, striking University of Madras buildings. So right from a kid, I've been exposed to these early morning runs, and as a photographer, I've seen how interesting the city looks those days because I used to be mad. I used to be mad about running long distances, so I used to practice running. And as a photographer, I think those initial days of looking at these beautiful structures and that particular road in the mornings actually inspired me to take up photography to a certain extent, yes. Because being in that area is very nostalgic. And I still remember as a kid we used to play in the High Court complex actually, because now you have security around, but those days, 35 years back, there was no security there, 40 years back, so we used to play cricket inside the High Court buildings, and I used to run around the whole premises. There was no security, nothing. Good old safe days those were. And then again, in that, one interesting aspect was we used to come across a monument. When I was a kid, I really didn't know what the structure was standing there behind the High Court, close to the road. And we used to wonder what it was. Then later on, when I was doing a movie shoot for Emerton Magan, so I used to wonder what is this Emerton. So director had visited that. So he told me, M10, it's a submarine which during the First World War, it came across the beach, Bay of Bengal, and they fired a couple of shots into the city, and it landed there at the High Court premises. And that's where there's a plaque saying M10 submarine shot a couple of shells into Chennai. So that was very interesting aspect. சின்ன வயசுல நான் அந்த இடத்துல பார்த்துருக்கேன், ஆனால் I couldn't really connect எந்த ஒரு அளவுக்கு that M10 has become a part of folklore whole of Tamil Nadu. So these kind of very interesting things. அப்போ தான் நினச்சேன் இவ்வளோ இடம் பார்த்துருக்கோம், ஆனால் நம்மளால் அதை கனெக்ட் பண்ண முடியல. How much it's impacted generations and the time, and it's given new names to certain things. And one thing about that particular, Chennai especially, is it's got a very diverse, interesting communities. And there used to be Telugus, Komti, Chettiars. There used to be Bora Muslims. There were Chettiars. There were people from North India, Gujarat, from Rajasthan. There were also people from Saurashtra. There were people from Karnataka. A lot of people from Andhra. So that was the beginning of Chennai. Of Madras. So you could see the diversity there in terms of a lot of business establishments which were there for the past 200-300 years. And one thing about the city is a very inviting city. Whoever is moved into Chennai, they love the city. And I've seen a lot of people in advertising where people have shifted to Chennai because it's got the right balance in terms of traffic. Or as a photographer, I've always been interested in taking pictures of a lot of areas of architecture, interest of architecture. And in my particular area, there's this place called the Armenian Church. I think it was built in 1732. On the school there used to be only one Armenian descendant of the church who used to take care of that church. He used to have 8 to 9 dogs. So a very elderly gentleman, but he used to have a long beard, and he used to sit down with his 10 dogs around him just outside the church. So these are some of the images which I remember when I was a kid. So Ippondu, there was no one there, but that church was also, I think it was one of the oldest churches in Madras, and a lot of history behind it. And I've been inside as a photographer, gone in and shot those places. It's so interesting. And apart from that, coming over to other places like, say, Mylapore or parts of Chintadripet, and sometimes even closer to Santo, where you see some very interesting old architecture, where you have a mixture of other. One thing about Madras is lots of them fought for it. In the sense, there were the British, there were the Dutch towards the Pulicat Lake in the north. Then there was Portuguese, who were here near Santo. They established a big settlement here. Then of course there were the Danish a little down south. Then of course there was the French south of Chennai. So there was always this battle of. So you can still see fragments of history still available. And what's amazing is how all these people, the Armenians, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the English, the French, how they all stayed together. They all did business, of course. And even now, if you go down Last Church Road and places like that, you'll see a number of old Portuguese architecture, old houses. And they have these lovely high walls in the front, and the garden starts inside. It's a very Spanish Portuguese style of architecture. Another very interesting thing which I learned from my granddad and a lot of other people is Tamil, we use a lot of words. அதாவது நம்ம வந்து தமிழ் நினச்சிட்டு இருக்கோம், ஆனால் அது தமிழ் கிடையாது. வேர்ட்ஸ் லைக் ஜன்னல், நம்மலாம் ஜன்னல் பார்த்துருக்கோம். என்ன ஜன்னல்? கதவு ஜன்னல். ஜன்னல் வந்து தமிழ் வார்த்தை கிடையாது. ஜன்னல் இஸ் a Portuguese word. It's called janal. So that is something which is interesting. அப்புறம் நம்ம வந்து டேபிள் சேர், மேஜர், நாட்காலி அப்படி பேசிட்டு இருக்கோம். மேஜைன்றது தமிழ் வார்த்தை கிடையாது. மேஜை is a Portuguese word again, which was taken over as people, Tamils worked here, they took over that word called Majai. Then another interesting thing is even arisi, they say this. In Portuguese it's aris, I think. So those were also supposed to be, Tamil has picked up a lot of new words from the people who settled here in Madras those days. So these are very few words, but I know there are a lot more words which have been picked up from the Portuguese, the French, the English, the Dutch and Armenians. One of the most, recently interesting which I experienced was the Chennai floods, and to the level where the youngsters have got together and the way they've used technology. It's not just helping others, it's the way they've used technology to reach out, and youngsters using the social media platform and the way they organize them, because none of them, it is not like a Rotary club or it's not like a community service club or anything of that sort. These were just random people, just that they were all connected on Facebook or Twitter or whatever the social media was, and WhatsApp. They were able to organize a kind of a setup where they were able to reach out to a lot of people, bring in a lot of help, and at the same time, in terms of medication, in terms of food, in terms of helping people out of distress, the whole thing. That's something unique about Madras, because they're tech savvy for one, for very sure. Because the way even I was surprised to a great extent how they made use of social media to reach out to people, and that's something I found very different here in Chennai. And the other thing is about you can't separate cinema and Madras, because Madras was the hub of filmmaking in the south, and to a great extent even Oriya films were edited and post-production work was done in Chennai about 30 years back. After advertising, when I started shooting for feature films, for photo shoots and things like that, I was associated a lot with a lot of old studios like Vahini Studios, Prasad Studios, and a lot of other studios still exist. I was fortunate enough to shoot in those places. And there you can see history by itself, right from early 1930s onwards, how history has been written in terms of cinema in Chennai. And shooting with a lot of people like Mr. Shivaji Ganeshan, a lot of experienced actors, not only actors, producers, where I've seen the way Chennai was earlier, and there's a big, what do you call, eye opener for me as a photographer. How much of history has been there in terms of filmmaking in Madras. Okay. Number Chennai Chance-eyilla.